Hello everyone, it's Fahed from S2E4 panel. We're doing another one of our interview episodes today, and I'm very glad to be joined by Timea Gondosch. She is an illustrator currently based in London, but is originally from a beautiful Budapest in Hungary. Her work is mainly focused on positivity, mental health, environmental issues, social relations, self-acceptance, discovery and development, and she is currently working on a self-help workbook written and illustrated by her, while also running an online merchandise shop on the side. Hello, Timia. How are you doing today?
Hi, thank you for having me. First of all, I'm doing great. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I just wanted to start off the discussion with some of the projects that you are working on at the moment. So, could you tell us a little bit about the self-help workbook that you're working on? I believe it's called Making Peace with Everyone.
Yes, exactly. So I started this book as part of my degree, and the sample of the book was my graduation project. So one third of the book is done already. And so it's a self-help workbook, heavily illustrated. It focuses on how to deal with our social environment. It targets poor connections with anyone around us. It could be our friends, our family, colleagues, anyone. So it's a pretty general idea of dealing with social relations.
Okay, and when I was reading about the book online, you said you had the advice given it in the book is being looked over by a psychologist. So I was just wondering how that relationship came about in terms of how you developed the tactics and strategies that are in the book as well.
So this book was inspired by my own experiences. We all had a very hard time during the first and second lockdowns and everything. And well, I had time to look inside and reflect on myself and my actions. And I realized that even if it was a hard to swallow pill, I had personality traits and behaviors I really should have changed. So that was the origin of it. And then I started to research how can we make better connections with our environment. And then I just decided to do a book about it. So it took a lot of research, and I was trying to use resources used by psychologists. And actually, the story of me meeting this person is very interesting because I met her randomly in a coffee shop, and I just heard through a conversation that she's a psychologist, and I just randomly went up to her and told her, yeah, actually, I'm working on this book, and would you be interested to see it and help me with that? And I know it's very out of nowhere, but she was very helpful, very kind, and then we arranged a meeting, and she looked through the concept. She looked through the exercises that they fit their purpose, and she definitely approved of it.
That's really good, actually, kind of making these connections with people, and it's surprising how helpful people want to be. I
Hmm.
think, if you ask for help, they're quite prepared to give it. So you mentioned it's about a third of the way finished. How long do you think it will take you to complete the book, and what do you think, kind of what the plans for it? Are you going to self-publish it, or is it something that you're going to be pitching to publishers? What's kind of the plan going forward with
Yeah,
that
I
one?
already started to approach publishers. I want to get it published by a publisher. However, I that's why I don't really want to say too many details
Okay.
because I'm still looking for a deal,
Yeah.
but I have some publishers already interested in it. I think obviously I would like to do it full time, but for now I can't. So it's gonna take a little longer. I think it's gonna take another year to finish it.
Okay, sure. And I know you mentioned you don't want to give away too many details of what's going on in the book, but is it going to be kind of a mixture of comics and prose and exercises? Is that kind of the general idea of what's going to go into the book?
Yeah, so what I can say is that it's going to be very heavily illustrated, and my illustrations are very has a very child friendly style, I would say. So it's going to be very different to anything else that's out there. And I also have lead character of the book, which kind of represents in a way me as well, but it's a very average girl. So it can be related to many young women. So the book targets mainly young adults, young women, and that kind of could be the link and connection to comics, that I have this lead character throughout the book and the exercises.
Okay, that sounds really exciting. Another project that I saw mentioned on your website was Poppy's Adventure, which looks like a illustrated children's book. Are you in a position to talk about that at
Yes,
all?
yes, that was a last year project, and I really wanted to finish that book, but I didn't get there yet. So I'm looking to finish that later on, but I'm just very invested in this workbook right now.
Okay, that sounds fair enough. So you kind of mentioned your art style in one of the previous answers and how it's very appealing to children. I had a look on your website, and you've got a variety, and on your Instagram as well, and you've got a variety of different art styles that you employ, kind of depending on the story that you want to tell. I was kind of very interested in the difference you've got between the art style you employ in your social commentary work versus your children's work and your comics work. So I was just wondering what the thought process behind employing those different art styles were.
The thing is, I can get bored very easily with drawing the same character and the same style again and again. I'm always looking for something new. I love to experiment. So I'm settling with a couple of different styles by now, but I don't think I'm gonna be the person who sticks to one. I need the variety. I'm love exploring. I just need that.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. We had Will McPhil, and he usually draws, one page comic gags for a magazine, and he had to draw an entire graphic novel. And the thing that he found most difficult was the discipline that's required to draw the same character over and over and over again. And he longed for the freedom to just be able to experiment and draw weird faces that didn't have to have that consistency. Is that something that you've found a bit challenging, work with your love of experimentation, with both Poppy's Adventure and making peace with everyone having that consistency in drawing the same character?
Yeah, actually, I think practice makes perfect in a way. It was really hard with poppies. I struggled a lot to keep the character consistent. But with this one, I actually created the character in a way where it's very easy for me to draw. And as I do it, she's very similar. You can see that from the cover and compare it to my comics and Instagram, that they are very similar style wise. So I think that's something that, because I'm practicing it within my comics as well, something very similar. That's why it's getting easier now. But I absolutely understand. I heard that interview you had, and I absolutely understand what he was talking about.
It's interesting how different artists approach things. So, just looking at your art process, what tools do you use to create your art? Do you work with analog tools, with paint, paper, and ink, or do you use a lot of digital tools?
Mainly, I'm working with digital, and I also to work with Procreate. I find that very practical and very easy to use, and you can create great quality work, I think. Also, I do some retouching in Photoshop and other Adobe softwares, but yeah, mainly digital. I do some paintings. I have some canvases. I do some paintings on clothing, but they are very personal projects for now.
Yeah. So, in terms of working digitally, I had a previous guest, and the way that he prefers to work is that he uses a tablet device and Procreate, and he'll just go out into a park and start sketching and drawing and stuff like that, and then he'll only go back into his studio to do the final touching up. Is that quite similar to what you do in terms of, do you have, like, you go into your studio, you've got your tech set up there and start creating there? How do you go about, when you are creating, how do you kind of go about doing it?
Yeah, I actually tried this going to the park and drawing there, sketching there thing. It works, but I don't find myself to be very productive outside.
Okay.
I like to be in a comfort of my own home. But yeah, like the works, especially the comics, I draw them from experiences. So those are like situations or thoughts that I came across. And yeah, just when I just get home after a certain situation, I'm just sketching it up and then just going from there.
Yeah, that's. I think that's quite a common process in terms of people do like their drawing's quite hard, and I think you do need to find a comfortable spot to do it in. So whether that's in a park or in a studio, I think it's I think it's a little bit more common to find it in people creating in a studio. So you kind of mentioned in your previous answer about your comics being inspired by things that you've observed in the real world. I was just wondering what your scripting process is like. Do you, when you're writing a comic, do you write out a script beforehand, or is it very much drawing the panels from something that you've got inside your head? Do you write anything down at all, or is it very much more
Yeah,
free
I
flowing?
improvise a lot.
Yeah,
I'm not really planning. The thing with me is that as I said, that I'm losing interest very easily in drawing again and again the same character. It's something to do with comics as well. I can't really go over 4 frames.
yeah.
It's just something I like to keep things very easy and simple. And sometimes I just put all my thoughts in 1 frame and all whatever I want to express. So it's basically just an illustration. The stories which need to be told within more than one illustration, that's usually up to 4 frames for me.
That's really curious that you say that you want to keep it simple by just keeping it to 4 frames. I find when I'm writing stuff, just keeping down to 4 frames is 4 panels is incredibly difficult, and I think it's really challenging just to have that conciseness with the dialogue and with the action to make sure that you're telling a complete story within that 4 frames. Is that something that comes quite naturally to you? Is it something that you have to have quite a lot of discipline in terms of like maintaining that 4 frame, that 4 panel
Sometimes,
structure?
yeah, it really depends on the situation. But sometimes when it's a more complicated story, or yeah, there's a lot more to say, it's a little hard how to plan out those 4 panels or frames. But I don't know, for some reason I'm just stuck with this 4 rule.
Okay, that's really curious. I always find it really fascinating when creators set themselves. It doesn't sound you're setting yourself an arbitrary limit, but it seems like that's like a pattern that you've fallen into that you seem to quite enjoy creating in. So that's always quite fascinating to me when creators fall into that pattern. Do you think you'll eventually experiment with longer form narratives that will require you to move beyond like the 4 panels, or is that something you're kind of like quite comfortable with at the moment?
At the moment, I'm comfortable with it, but we will see how it goes. Because obviously, I'm
Yeah.
just doing it now as as a hobby, as it's a time thing. So I'm focusing on the book mainly. But who knows if it gets successful and people can relate to it, and then I might do longer ones. I might do a publication, a comic book. So we will see what the future holds.
Just wanted to ask you about your art influences as well. With the just focusing on the comics stuff and the illustration work, what are your main influences in terms of the line work that you're using? And I also really enjoy the coloring that you employ as well. So I was just wondering where those influences came from in terms of developing that.
I worked a
Yeah,
lot on my
yeah.
character. Like I really did work a lot because I think many artists can relate that it's in the beginning you're struggling a lot to find your style, and I was desperately searching for it. I really was. So it took a long time until I came up with this character, and then when I drew it, I just knew this is it. And then I just wanted to tell all the stories with this character. So I'm I'm actually not very aware of other comic artists because it really didn't interest me personally until I started to see this young upcoming webcomic artists, mainly on Instagram. So I love the comics of Sarah Anderson, What's Up Beanie, Planet Prudence. I don't know, I probably didn't pronounce it right, sorry. So these funny, very single line, very simple comics, they have similar style, like it's just a few panels, it's telling the story very quickly, so they kind of inspired me to start my own and tell my own stories.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting where people get their inspiration to start drawing. And I think you're actually the first person that's mentioned webcomics as kind of like the spark that lit the fire. A lot of well, to be fair, most of the guys that I've interviewed have been men, and they've got men of a certain age that have read kind of superhero comics or 2000 AD
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
it's really refreshing to come across someone who's interesting comic came around web comics, and I think that probably explains a little bit why you enjoy using the four
Yeah.
panel frame as well. So
Yeah, I kind of I thought that I'm gonna be outstanding a little bit because I'm not really into these Marvel comics and all that. I'm just, it's not nothing against them; they're great. And in university, we like studied about them as well, and there were many people fascinated by them. It's just action in general as a genre is just personally not for me. So probably this is why I wasn't inspired them by them in the past.
I think I mean, it's absolutely fair enough. People are interested in different things.
Yeah.
And I think the beautiful thing about literature and fiction and movies and comic books and music is that there are genres and styles and stories for
Mm.
everyone. And I think, especially in the West, I think, graphic novels and comics have been lumped in with the superhero genre, which it's fine. It's a fantastic genre. A lot of people get out of it. But, if you look in France or Japan, there's such a variety of stories being told. And I think it's really important that we recognize that comics are more than just superhero comics. And that's something that I hope in England and United States is going to come more to the fore. So, I mean, I know you're from Hungary. What's like the comic book scene out there? If you've got any knowledge of that at all? Are there any Hungarian comic book creators that we should be keeping an eye on, or is it very much? Yeah, I don't know what kind of the cultural landscape is out in Hungary. So, if you could talk about a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not sure about that. I don't really know. I only heard, even back at home, I only heard about these action comics, which I wasn't interested in. And I'm trying to think, and there was one comic I think I read when I was a kid, and it was called Witch, and it was about, I think, a girl witch, like a little girl witch or something. And then I think that was the only comic I came across at home.
Okay, so that's really I mean, I don't know if you're going to be planning on going back there, but it probably would be quite interesting to go. Because every country's got its own comic book and graphic novel
Yeah.
culture. It's just sometimes it's a bit of a struggle to find it over the noise of the American comic scene. So as I understand, you're mostly working on solo projects at the moment. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so would like collaborating with other creators, is that something that appeals to you at all in terms of working with other artists or other writers? Is that something that you're interested in, or are you still kind of looking to experiment and find ways of telling your own
Yeah, I
stories?
haven't really had the chance yet to work with others. I had a couple of smaller collaborations, but I'm definitely open for it. Yeah.
It's always interesting because because comics as you know are really difficult to make, so having help from other people to with different aspects in terms of if they're doing the coloring or the inking or the writing, I think is definitely a good thing to have sometimes, but it also does multiply the complications in terms of how to organize everything and making sure that everyone's delivering their
Yeah.
work on time and all that other sort of thing that comes with doing things uh, in a team. What I wanted to also ask you about, you kind of mentioned the themes of, you've already talked a little bit about mental health. I was just wondering, you also mentioned in your bio kind of about environmental issues. What kind of what kind of attracts you to kind of like telling stories about those issues?
So at the moment, I'm mainly highlighting this vegan movement as myself, as I gained a lot more awareness about the issue. I became vegan as well, and I would like to inspire others as well. But I'm also, as we just mentioned the collaboration thing. I'm looking to collaborate with charities or um, or groups has the focus on the climate change, the this whole vegan movement, and also social issues. I was approaching charities who were caring about orphan children, if we could collaborate and work together. So I'm really looking into these problems to see where can I help really.
That's very commendable. I think you need to find projects that you're passionate about, because creating art is difficult, and you need to have kind of the correct motivation. So, reaching out to organizations to see if you can help with your art, I think, is definitely a really good thing. I used to volunteer for an art center, and they did a lot of outreach work in terms of like running arts workshops with people recovering from homelessness, and you can just see firsthand the benefit that those people um, kind of uh, got from it. So you kind of mentioned a few of your favorite comics creators already. A lot of them are kind of web comics. So I was just wondering, are you reading any comic books or graphic novels at the moment, or is it just kind of purely the web comics? And if you are, which web comics would you recommend our listeners check out?
Yeah, so mainly, yeah, webcomics only for me,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah,
So one,
yeah, so, yeah, sorry, just before sorry to cut across your answer. Where do you find them? Are you using things like Webtoon, or is it just like recommendations? How do you come across good web comics to read? Because there's so many out there at the moment. How do you discover
yeah,
them?
I come across them very randomly, but if I want to be entirely honest, I'm mainly seeing them, reading them on Instagram.
Ah,
So
okay,
that's when
sure.
I get some artists suggested, and I check out their work, and they do some amazing work. So that's how I mainly explore them.
Okay, so sorry. Yeah, you was going to talk about which comics you're reading at the moment as well. Sorry to
That's all
interrupt
right.
you like that.
I think the main artist I could say is her. She's in Instagram as well. What's up, Beanie? And she's very funny,
Yeah.
very adorable, amazing facial expressions. Like that's just amazing. So that would be one I would really recommend for a little giggle or a laugh.
And I know I've never heard of it before. What's that about? Does she do kind of random characters? Is it kind of
Um,
like an ongoing
she's drawing
narrative?
herself and her life
Yeah.
experiences as well. But she can, I think her comics are great because of the facial expressions she can draw. Like they're just next level, I think. So they're very very funny. But yeah, it's based on her own experiences and life and memories and all that.
Okay, that sounds definitely one to check out. And are there any other web comics that you'd kind of recommend, or does nothing come to mind? Or kind
Yeah,
of
another lady I could mention is Plana Prudence. I really hope I'm pronouncing it right. So her like she's on Instagram as well, and she's focusing a lot on body image and
Yeah.
trying to focus on self-esteem. And I think she's very, very inspiring. Like, her comics are funny as well, and her illustrations, but it just shows you the raw truth of the human body. And I think that's very fascinating to see that she can put that through with humor.
Okay, that's definitely another one that I'll be checking out. We have reviewed like web comics in the past, but they've mostly been on either webtoons or one of these other kind of like Korean or Japanese inspired websites that you kind of get, where there's kind of manga or anime inspired artwork. So it's quite good that getting recommendations for other comics creators to check out. So, some of your artwork is kind of quite cartoony. I was just wondering if there was any kind of animation influences in the way that you're creating your work at the moment. I know you've done a couple of animations that are up on your website. Are there any cartoons from your childhood that influence your work now, or even animations that you've watched
That's
as
a
as
very
an
good
adult?
question, because when I got interested in animation, I was dreaming about that I'm gonna work in the Disney studio one day.
Yeah,
And I love Disney and Pixar animation films. They're very great. And when I got into university, then we slowly obviously started to learn about these techniques, and then I had to realize that this is not for me.
yeah. Oh, okay. What made you realize?
Yeah,
What made you realize that?
that I have no patience for animation.
Okay, sure.
Honestly, it's very great, and I have so much respect for all the animators out there. They have so much patience. I don't have it. And so yeah, I am fine with animation, doing short loops, maybe some very, very short animation, like under a half a minute. But this year I created a longer one. I think it was 1.5 minutes, and I was struggling
Yeah.
so much. I mean, I learned the technique and I knew how to do it, but again, it's repeatedness when you have to, because I love traditional animation, and in traditional animation you have to draw frame by frame,
Yes.
and that is a lot of
Yeah,
work.
that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. I did when I was volunteering at Omnibus Theatre, I did a stop motion animation for their children's class, and they hadn't recorded. I say they hadn't shot enough photos, so I had to go into Photoshop and then kind of actually manually alter the images so I'd have enough frames to make the animation work, and that was so unbelievably tiresome. I feel your pain there. Yeah.
Yeah, stop motion is another one. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's
very, very long.
yeah, very long.
And with me, I personally really like to draw by hand. So I don't I don't like to create animation in a very, very digital way, where you use the mouse and your keyboard and everything. I like to draw by hand. So I'm making my life harder.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So it's because the thing is, you only know what you enjoy and what works for you after you've kind of tried it. So I think that's the whole point about art. It is kind of finding a way to express yourself that makes the act of expression joyful itself. So if animation was a bit tiresome. I know animation is tiresome, but yeah, it's kind of, if you find it tiresome, it doesn't really surprise me there. Are there any books, films, albums that you would kind of recommend people checking out that you've either kind of encountered during lockdown or recently that you think more people should know
I
about?
didn't really think about
Yeah.
this, but yeah, I actually have a book recommendation right now. That was a big inspiration for me as well. Is the Adulting Manual from Katie Abbey and Millie Smith. So it's it's kind of a self-help workbook as well. So yeah, it was a high inspiration for me, but it covers a lot more than what I'm working on. And they cover everything from self-esteem to traumas to how to deal with daily tasks as shopping, or when you need to go out but you don't really want to meet people because you just have one of those days. I think it's a very interesting book, and I don't know if it got the right amount of recognition yet.
Okay, so that's definitely one I'll be checking out as well. So yeah, just look, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should
I
have?
think we covered everything really.
Okay, that's great. So if you could just let my listeners know where they can find you on the internet and or yeah, so where they can find your website, social media, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I have my online shop available with all merchandise, stationery, t-shirts, tote bags, everything with my designs and designed by me on teamashop.square.site. And I have my website is illustration by tia.wordpress.com.
And are you on social media as well? I know you've got like an Instagram account.
Yes, I actually have a
Okay.
few
So
Instagram
the one that
accounts.
I've come across is Tier Content Creator. Is that an okay one to? Yeah.
That one. So I have an Instagram. My main Instagram account is my full name,
Yeah.
Timea Gondosch, and yeah, I'm guiding my audience to to my other accounts
Okay.
from
Sure.
there. I just like to keep it separate from the comics and from the publication and from everything. Just keep it
Okay,
organized.
that's great. So really thank you for coming on and speaking to me today. It was really fascinating to hear about your upcoming works, and yeah, I think that's kind of it. Any last words, Tia?
No, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I was very excited for this interview and I was very happy that you contacted me. So thank you very much for having me.
Okay, thanks, guys. So I've got a couple more of these interviews lined up. That's it, guys. If you could please follow us on social media, it's See-Through Panel Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and we don't have a Twitter account yet, but we need to go and sort that out. If you could please use a referral link or donate money to the pod, so it just helps keep the lights on. And please review and subscribe if you can. Reviews are really helpful in terms of helping other listeners discover the pod. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you on the other side.
Bye.
Bye.